Hello, welcome to Liberty Wolf, episode number 16. My name is Zach Strong. I'm the creator of this Liberty Wolf podcast. Today we will be talking about gratitude. I thought that was a fitting topic for the holidays. Before I begin, though, I'd like to welcome the newcomers and invite you to go back and listen to the other podcasts I put out this year. Some interesting topics for you. Now, today, with the holidays approaching, with Christmas right around the corner, a few days away, and with Thanksgiving just in our rear view mirror, this is really a time to express our gratitude, to be thankful for so many things. I particularly want to make a plea for Americans to be thankful for the United States of America, to be thankful for their country at this time. And that's really the thrust of what I want to get out today, is that we need to develop an attitude of gratitude for the blessings we have in this country that no other nation really, truly enjoys. Now, there's nothing to make you appreciate your blessings as an American, your privileges, your rights, like visiting abroad or living abroad. I just got back this past weekend from a 2-week trip down to Latin America. Been down there a few times now. I also lived in Russia, visited some countries over there, visited all throughout Canada, lived all over the United States. Pretty well read about the world. And I'm just struck every time I go abroad with how, trying to be polite here, with how it is not the United States. It's so palpable, the difference. It's really incredible. And if you really understand and comprehend the heritage of freedom you have here as an American, you can't help but just be so happy to return to the United States when you come back. I mean, you want to be back. You want to be back in your own country, to breathe the free air here in the United States. It's just a different feeling being in another country. It's not the same, and we need to recognize that. Unfortunately, many people don't. And since the very beginning of this republic, in fact, a lot of people have not recognized and comprehended what tremendous blessings, unique and unsurpassed blessings we have here in the United States. You know, here in America, we have more wealth, more prosperity, more influence, more liberty, more technology, more ease. You can go down a whole list of things. We have more of all these things than any other people has ever had in the history of the world. Yet so many of us take it for granted. Some of us even develop an entitlement mentality, thinking that, yeah, of course, just by virtue of being alive, I deserve these things. We don't remember that our forefathers, through their blood, sweat, and tears, won them for us with the assistance of God. So we take it for granted. Or perhaps we just don't understand it because we've gone to 15 years of public Marxist schooling, or because we've listened a little too much to, the communist-controlled media, or we've watched one too many Judeo-Bolshevik films in Hollywood. We really need to get past the propagandizing that goes on, to throw away the conditioning that says our ancestors were terrible people, that you should be guilty for being white, that you need to give reparations to people of color, all these sorts of things. I mean, today we're spitting on the memory of our noble forebears. They really were honorable men, very faithful women too. And yet we don't remember their memory, and when we do, we remember it with disgust. Like we're so sorry that we're even connected to them at all. Ooh, that horrible Thomas Jefferson slave owner. Forget that he wrote the Declaration of Independence, and forget all the good stuff he did, right? Let's tear down his monuments, or anything with a Confederate flag on it. Let's tear that down. Obviously, it's racist. These are the sorts of things that we've been taught that are completely 180 degrees opposite of reality. And part of the root of this problem is that we have forgotten how blessed we are. We have developed an ungrateful attitude. We don't have gratitude anymore. We certainly don't recognize God's hand in giving us all these wonderful things. Sure, our country's not perfect. In fact, it has a whole heck of a lot of warts. Many, many, many big, gross, ugly warts. And it's only going to get worse, frankly, because people have not turned back to God, and they're showing no signs of doing so. Wicca, for example, witchcraft, is the #1 fastest growing religion in the country. So when you see people, ditching the religion of their forefathers, Christianity, in favor of paganism, all sorts of new age hodgepodge of weird, twisted beliefs, and Eastern mysticism, and Jewish Kabbalism. You see all these things mixing in our culture, and it's really, really disheartening. Because we are never going to get back to what we used to be and what we used to have. We're never going to get it back if we don't develop the same sort of attitude of gratitude that our forebears had. In the Declaration of Independence, for example, our founding fathers wrote that we have our rights from God. We are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. Not only that, they said they pledged to each other with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, their honor. And they pledged to each other their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor in order to defend freedom. But the reason that they had confidence that they could break away from tyrannical Great Britain and establish a free republic was precisely because of that reliance on God. They were grateful for what God had done for them. One of the early proposed seals of the United States it was a picture of Moses being led by a pillar of light, leading the Israelites out of Egyptian bondage, because that's how early Americans saw what was happening in the United States. They saw it as an act of divine providence that America was being led out of bondage, that America was set apart among the nations for a special purpose. Here's what John Lathrop said in 1796 on Independence Day. He said this: "The first promulgation of the gospel of liberty was the Declaration of American Independence. The Americans were elected by God to redeem from bondage the miserable victims of arbitrary power." Close quote. He and many others talked about how America was set up, the shining city on a hill, right? That was always the goal of the Pilgrims. And how America was set up as this free republic, this asylum for the oppressed of the world. And it was really a unique thing that happened here. No one else in the world had the freedom that America won through the War of Independence and through this divine providence that brought us through the war successfully. Many of the founding fathers talked about how you have to be worse than an infidel, this is how they sometimes said it, to not recognize the hand of God in the formation and the war for independence of the United States. That you have to be completely spiritually blind to not see it. And yet today, how many people don't see it? Today we look at those same men as bigots, racists, homophobes, misogynists, self-interested capitalists. And we don't realize the same sort of, we don't comprehend what they comprehended. That it was God who did this great thing for America, and that America really is a different country. We are set apart from the rest of the world. And if you've ever lived abroad or visited extensively abroad, you know how different we are. There's no comparison comparing us with any other country. Great Britain, France, Germany, Russia, China, Panama, Brazil, Australia, New Zealand, Japan. You just go around the country. There's no comparison, none whatsoever. No other nation on earth has the same heritage of freedom we have. No other nation on earth has this heritage of rule of law, of written constitutions. We have the longest running constitution in the world, whereas other nations are largely ruled by autocrats and whoever has the most power. American citizens are free. There's a sense of order here. You go abroad, everyone's driving like insane people. There's, heaps of trash everywhere. It's dirty. There's packs of dogs. There's kind of no law and order. Everything's being bootlegged, especially in Russia. That was terrible. The black market was horrendous there. Every cheap knockoff thing you could find from America was being ripped off and sold over there for very few rubles. This sort of thing all throughout the world. It's this lack of order, this lack of dignity in society, lack of civilization, really. And that's saying something. I mean, because America today is so deteriorated from what it once was, and yet we still have this sense of order that you can't find in many other countries. I mean, and certainly not to the same degree. Um, and so we need to be grateful. We need to have a thankful attitude towards God and towards the memory of our ancestors. We should not spit on their graves. We should not spit on their memory. We should not, treat their memory badly and talk of them as if they were horrible people and tear down their monuments and essentially classify their famous declarations and speeches as hate speech. We need to remember them for the good they did and for what they did for not only for America but for the world, created this beacon of liberty to the world. Unfortunately, the infusion of Marxism in our society, this communist cancer, is responsible for this mentality. It's taken over our schools, Hollywood, etc. And so it's poisoned the minds of Americans. Tricked them into having this white guilt, tricked them into thinking their ancestors were terrible people, that people of color are the only noble people on earth, things like that. It's really, really disgusting. But see, from the very beginning, there were always a group of people who didn't quite comprehend what America was, and today that number's increased. But back even in the very beginning, there were still some people who didn't realize how special America was. And one of the reasons for that was because a lot of people back in the day hadn't visited abroad. I mean, they didn't have the money to fly somewhere. There were no planes. I mean, it's just months out of your life if you're going to go take a trip somewhere, right? So I have a quote that to me is one of the most profound quotes ever. I like to quote it a lot. It's from Thomas Jefferson, written to James Monroe, one of his good friends, future president of the United States, June 17th, 1785. Jefferson, for the first time, had just gone abroad. He was living in France on assignment at the time. This is what he said. Quote, "My God, how little do my countrymen know what precious blessings they are in possession of, and which no other people on earth enjoy." Close quote. This is Jefferson, right? The sage of Monticello, the one who wrote the Declaration of Independence. He was so learned, and he read thousands of books. He spoke about 7 different languages. A brilliant guy, yet even he didn't quite comprehend what America had, the blessings and privileges of the lifestyle we have here. He had to go abroad to France before he could really see the amazing contrast between the wonderful, blessed lifestyle and the blessings and the privileges of the laws we have versus the kind of autocratic, degraded societies they have in the rest of the world. And now I want to read the rest of the quote too. I'm going to repeat that part and then read the rest of what Jefferson said. Quote, "My God, how little do my countrymen know what precious blessings they are in possession of, and which no other people on earth enjoy. I confess I had no idea of it myself. While we shall see multiplied instances of Europeans going to live in America, I will venture to say that no man now living will ever see an instance of an American removing to settle in Europe and continuing there." Close quote. I wish sometimes that my days were in the days of Jefferson and these great founding fathers. I love them so much. I am grateful for their memory. And I hope that in my life I've tried to, that I've exemplified the same sort of attitude of gratitude that they had for what America represents and for the precious blessings we have here. It is mind-boggling that anyone who has grown up here in America would ever want to live abroad. Now, what I mean is permanently settle, right? To make it their home. I could see moving abroad for a period of time. I lived in Russia for 2 years as a missionary. I could see living places for temporary amounts of time, but to renounce American citizenship, to move abroad, make it your home, you have to be a little bit insane. You have to not really comprehend what America is and what she represents and the blessings that we have here. Yet we see people all the time renouncing their citizenship and moving abroad. Even today in the news, I saw it was a headline on Drudge Report. It was saying that one there's I dispute the statistic, but it was saying that 1/3 of Americans are thinking about considering moving abroad. That's over 100 million Americans. So I mean, I don't see how that's possible, but the fact that it can be anywhere, even in that ballpark, is just staggering. That so many people are so brainwashed about our history. They're so disillusioned through propaganda, through Marxist propaganda, about our system and the superior, amazing, God-given blessings we have here, that they would ever want to move abroad, renounce the blessings of American citizenship and move abroad. Oh, where are they going to move? Are they going to move to France? You see what's happening in France lately, all the riots and protests. France is the highest taxed nation in the world. It's complete chaos. The immigrants have overrun the place. Same thing in Germany. They've been overrun. Their government is, dictator Merkel there. She's insane. It's a communistic government. Every government in Europe is overrun by socialism. So, you can't really move there unless you're completely crazy. Where are you going to move? China? You also have to be a little bit insane to move from the United States to China, which is just about the most totalitarian country on earth, with maybe only a couple exceptions. People give China a pass because China's prosperous right now, or at least supposedly on the surface is prosperous. And yet, what about the 2 million Muslims in Western China that are in concentration camps? What about all those Christian churches there that are being bulldozed by the government? What about Xi Jinping, the communist dictator leader of China right now, who said Christians are in the way of progress? I mean, is this the country you want to move to? What about Russia? Russia set itself up during the Cold War as the great alternative to the America-led West. I've lived in Russia. It's a dilapidated, falling apart country. They don't have the same prosperity. It's a police state. Every corner you go on, there's police roaming everywhere. I was arrested while I was there, harassed multiple times. I had machine guns pointing in my face. Where are you going to move? You're going to move to Central America, where you have all these banana republics that are constantly being overthrown. I mean, you have Central America has some of the worst crime in the world. Mexico is the #1 worst place in the world for murder and crime. You have all sorts of failed states down there, from Venezuela to Honduras, Nicaragua. Are you going to move to Africa? I mean, that's just a joke. I mean, the best, most prosperous country in Africa is South Africa, and look at what they've done there. The government, which is a communist government, Nelson Mandela was a communist terrorist, convicted terrorist, served time in prison, the murderer, anti-white racist, who helped the Soviets come to power. I mean, you can see pictures of him at the Communist Party rallies, for crying out loud. I mean, he brought in communism there, and what has it done? Now you have these black racists who are in power, who've openly declared that they're going to confiscate all the land from the white farmers. By next March, I think it is, they're going to confiscate it all, is what they've said. You have one of the political leaders there who just said, we need to kill whites and rape the white women. That was just big headline news this past week. I mean, so you're not going to move to Africa, obviously. You're going to move to the Middle East? What, in Israel, which is an apartheid state? Where are you going to move? If you leave the United States, where are you going to move? Where are you going to move? Like Ronald Reagan said, there's nowhere else to escape to. This is the last stand on Earth. Not only should we dig in and prepare to defend this country, both against our government and against the Russians and Chinese and their allies who desperately want to take us down, and they're still following their strategic Soviet long-range plan to do so. But we should have a proper understanding of history and see America in the context of the world and how wonderful this country is comparatively. We've diminished, yes. And it's very sad. But we have the greatest potential of any nation on earth, bar none. There's no other nation on earth that has the same potential we have. And it's precisely because no other nation on earth has the same heritage we have. No other nation on earth has the same laws, the same constitution that was established by the hand of God. No other nation has forefathers like our American founding fathers, like this generation that risked their lives to fight the British tyrants and autocrats and monarchists who wanted to enslave this country. No other nation was founded by groups of people called Sons of Liberty. No other nation has the same heritage. No other nation gave to the world all the wonderful inventions and technologies we have. From TV to phone to internet to the car, airplanes, just go down the list. Everything that's made life easy, that's allowed us to communicate with the rest of the world, that has, propelled us into this technology age. It's taken us in outer space. It's come from the United States, from the genius of our people, from the nobility of our forefathers. So we shouldn't have this white guilt, this Marxist mantra of white guilt that we repeat. We should instead remember who we are. That we're the children of these wonderful people who built the United States, who created this free republic. We should remember, as Daniel Webster said in 1851, quote, that our inheritance is an inheritance of American liberty. That liberty is characteristic, peculiar, and altogether our own. Nothing like it existed in former times, nor was known in the most enlightened states of antiquity. Close quote. Nothing like what we have has ever existed before. If you are even slightly educated in history, you know this. You know that the Romans, at the height of their power, had nothing to even come close to what we have. The Greeks? Nope. Egyptians? Nope. Ancient Israelites? Nope. Today, who else has what we have? The Chinese? The Russians? The British? The Germans? No one has what we have. I mean, we've bailed out the rest of the world. This world would have collapsed decades ago if it wasn't for us actually bailing out with billions of billions and even trillions of dollars the rest of the world and giving them all sorts of stuff from our country, including helping pattern some of their governments off of our own constitution. But since they lack the heritage, though, then they lack the understanding of what to do with it. And so they've fallen into all sorts of despotic situations. But we are still the world leader. That's indisputable. And because of what we have, what we've been given by God, we should be grateful. Very, very grateful, especially at this Christmas time of year, this holiday season. We need to turn our minds to the Savior Jesus Christ, what He has done for us. Not only spiritually. Everyone talks about that. That's why I'm not talking about it so much right now. Not only what He's done spiritually for us in redeeming us, redeeming those who will believe in Him and follow His gospel, but what He did for our nation. This is a special nation. This is a promised land. I'm not going to go into it right now, but even the Bible refers to the United States. Refers to people being set up in the everlasting hills. It refers to this country. There's so many prophecies about it. This is a special country with a special heritage. When I was coming back from Central America this past weekend, as we were flying up, we flew over Florida, and I was watching it on the tracker, the flight tracker. And there was a little boy sitting behind me, probably around between 5 and 7 years old, probably around 7. He was looking out the window, and he said, "Look, I see the states," as in the United States. "I see the states," and he was so excited and so happy. You could hear it in his voice. "Oh, look, America!" So I don't understand how we don't have that same attitude. Especially any of us who have visited abroad. We should come back here and basically fall on our knees, thanking the Lord that we are privileged to live here in the United States. Like Jefferson said all those years ago, my God, how little do my countrymen know what they're in possession of, these precious blessings that no one else enjoys. No one else has what we have. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise. Don't let the Russian-controlled media, the communist-controlled media, that's a better way to put it, don't let them tell you otherwise. Of course, they're only going to paint a bleak picture, and I do that sometimes too. But I always try to follow it up with, but we have this great potential. We could restore our republic. We have our founding documents that say, hey, look to God. We have a firm reliance on his providence that he's going to help us out. If we can develop the same sort of attitude, have the same thanks well up in our hearts, and exemplify it, show it through days of fasting, through helping others, goodwill towards men, right? That's Christmas time, right? Goodwill towards men. By helping to educate people, there's so many things we could do. We can show to God that, hey, this people they actually are thankful for what I've done for them in the past. Okay, I'll keep blessing them. I'll keep upholding them. But to the extent that we forget to be thankful for what he's given us, for those unsurpassed blessings he's just poured down upon us, to that same extent, his influence, his protection will withdraw. There'll be more chaos, more infighting. There'll be more attacks from the outside. And so I just pray at this time, it's Christmas time of year, when our hearts should be turned towards Christ, even though Christmas was based on a pagan holiday, even more so than Halloween was, if you've read your history very well. Yet we've made it here in the West about Christ. Christ is the reason for the season, right? You can't spell Christmas without Christ. We need more Christ. Even, it's funny when some, atheists and others try to disparage the holiday by writing Xmas. Well, X came from the Greek as the first letter of Christ's name, Christos, and it's the same in a lot of other languages like Russian, Christos. And so it means Christmas. So that's just a funny kind of side note. But we need to put Christ back in the holiday. And not just this holiday, but every holiday. Make our lives kind of a Thanksgiving, a continual Thanksgiving, a continual Christmas, as Benjamin Franklin once called it, to God for what he's blessed us with. We have no reason not to be so thankful. And if you are feeling ungrateful living in this country, please take a trip abroad. Go spend some time abroad. Go spend some time somewhere where you have to carry your papers around all day long, and where you can be accosted by police, walking the streets with their AK-47s. Do that sometime. And then you'll be really grateful for what we have in this country. And then you maybe won't take it for granted. And that you'll thank your ancestors for what they did with the help of God in creating this country. So please turn your heart back to God, to Christ, to the Savior Jesus Christ. Remember him. Remember what he did for this nation in blessing us with this heritage that is unsurpassed. And be proud to be an American. Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. That's what the Bible says. Truly, that's true. Truly, we will be blessed if we remember the Lord and make him our God, both in deed as well as word. That we may do this is my plea and my prayer, and I end the way I always end, with the addition of, have a very Merry Christmas, and I'll see you again soon. Sic Semper Tyrannis. Long live liberty.